All right, let's try that again. Good evening, everyone. This is the regular Village Council meeting for June 15th, 2020. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Hausch.
I'm here.
McQueen. Do we see McQueen? Do we see McQueen? Oh, we see her.
Here.
Thanks. Stokes.
I'm here. I was muted.
Thanks, Stokes. Yep. Krieger.
Present.
Curlis.
Here.
Thank you. Also present are Public Works Director Johnny Burns, Finance Director Colleen Harris, Chief of Police Brian Carlson, Village Manager Josue Salmarone, and Village Solicitor Chris Connor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judy. And so we are kicking off the meeting with 4 swearing-ins. So I believe we heard earlier Dino yelling at his dogs, so I guess he's on. We've got Stephen Green, I saw him earlier, and then 2 alternates, Sarah Amend, who I know is on, and Susan Stiles. I did want to mention that you will, if you don't already have, receive one of these awesome Village of Yellow Springs lapel pins. And if you are able to stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me on this oath, that would be great. So, all right, so we've got Dino, Stephen, Susan, and Sarah. And repeat after me. I solemnly affirm.
I solemnly
affirm
that I will support the Constitution.
that I will support the Constitution
And will obey the laws of the United States.
and will obey the laws of the United States
And the state of Ohio.
and the state of Ohio.
That I will in all respects.
That I will in all respects
Observe the provisions of the Charter.
observe the provisions of the Charter
And ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs.
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs.
And will faithfully discharge the duties of.
And will faithfully discharge the duties of Planning Commission.
Yes, Planning Commission. All right, thanks everyone. I'll shake your hand today and welcome aboard.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. Okay, next up we have announcements, and I'm going to go around and see who might have those. Mary Ann McQueen, any announcements?
Yes, I have a couple on, actually, I'm moving all of them from communications to announcements. So the first one is in regard to Villager Dan Beverly, who is retiring from the Village of Yellow Springs Tree Committee after 16 years serving as president, vice president, co-treasurer, volunteer coordinator, truck maintenance expert, chief equipment engineer, purchasing agent, and tree guru. The village acknowledges his contributions and thanks him for his years of dedicated service. Dan was the recipient of a mayoral proclamation delivered to him at his home residence yesterday in the presence of several socially distant members of the tree committee. And congratulations, Dan, and thank you. The other 2 announcements regard parades, and I have questions about both. So the first is the Pride Parade, which I believe is happening, and I'm sure that there will be more information coming out about it. It's going to be by car. People are encouraged to decorate their homes, residents, and I suppose their cars. I believe that it is Saturday the 27th. I wasn't clear about the time, so if anyone else has information, just jump in. Nope. Okay, I'm sure we'll get more information about that, but it's Saturday the 27th. The other is the 4th of July parade, which seems to be an off again, on again, maybe off again. And Josue, do we have any more information? Do you know whether it's going to happen or not?
We are waiting to hear back from Greene County Public Health. on feedback from new orders that have come from Ohio Department of Health. The new order specifically prohibits street fairs and festivals. So we're looking to see if the parade is allowed under the new order. So Fire Chief Colin Altman is working with the Greene County Public Health to make that determination, and we hope to hear soon. And by soon, I'm hoping that we know by Wednesday so that we can move forward with planning.
Okay, great. Yeah, so people just will need to keep their ears and eyes open for the latest development in the parade, and I hope it happens. So those are my announcements.
Kevin Stokes, any announcements?
Well, just a reminder to everyone that this Friday is Juneteenth, the celebration of the release of slaves in the U.S. And I could, if I were allowed to, I would say something about Antioch College doing something in honor of that, but I'm not allowed to, so I won't. So, but just a reminder of that social for now holiday this Friday.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Lisa Krieger?
None.
Okay. Laura Curlis?
Yes, I just want to point out I'm here with Wonder Woman and Chief Carlson from a Pride Parade in days gone by. But the reason I have it up is because the United States Supreme Court today announced a major anti-discrimination decision, and they decided that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1984 does cover LGBTQ people, and that means they can't be discriminated against. It was specifically an employment case, but it's broader than that, and that's a huge civil rights victory. So I think it's worth marking that today. Thank you.
So in the picture, though, which one is Wonder Woman?
Me. This would probably be a resident by the name of Melissa Heston, but she's AKA Wonder Woman.
All right. Josue, any announcements?
Yes, I would like to thank the Human Relations Commission, Kevin Stoke and Laura Curlis, for helping us assist with the Saturday's activities. It was a great event. We were able to provide the additional security we needed, and it was very encouraging and motivating to see so many young people take the lead on the protest. So thank you, Laura and Kevin, for your efforts.
All right. Thanks, Josue. And kind of an add-on to that, I want to also thank the Human Relations Commission. It's great that the village can sponsor such important peaceful protests through one of our commissions. I also wanted to give a big thanks to the Yellow Springs Police Department and the village team for successfully handling 2 of the marches that happened the last 2 Saturdays. If I didn't know better, I wouldn't have known that the march on, June 6th was impromptu, because it was so well handled, very smooth. It was safe. I really appreciated that. We had a heads up this past Saturday. It went well again. So I really appreciate that from the team. The other thing is, and I think we have a picture of this, I was out at Ellis Pond early Sunday morning, kind of at the crack of dawn, and was amazed to see that Ellis Pond Bridge that is essentially complete at this point. It looks great, very sturdy, such a nice addition to that park. And I want to thank the village team who keeps things moving. Lots going on, even as we address all the concerns related to the COVID-19 crisis. A couple other quick things. Some of us may realize that on June 17th, this Wednesday, Josue will be celebrating 1 year at the village. And I really want to say that I feel so good about the decision that we made a year ago to bring Josue on to support everything that's going on in the village. Josue, you have done an amazing job during the pandemic. Really, you've stepped up and helped coordinate things in so many ways. No one would have known that that was going to be a big part of your first year. And we're just really happy to see the vision that you're bringing and the things moving forward. And we'll get a chance to celebrate you on Wednesday at the town hall as well. So thank you.
Brian, thank you so much. And none of this wouldn't be possible without the support of council and the support of the great team that we have in place. Brian Carlson, Johnny Burns, Colleen Harris, Denise Swinger, Sean, Phillip, who's helped put these videos together, and Chris Connor, who's been on speed dial for the last year. So, and Judy, we have an amazing team here.
Absolutely.
Definitely do. And there's another person I want to recognize who's going to be leaving the village. Some of you may feel I'm a little biased because this is my brother, Principal Hausch. And I think everyone knows that next week he will be wrapping up 10 years as the principal for Mills Lawn Elementary. And I want to personally recognize Matt because he has been such a great community leader and collaborator and has done so much in terms of youth programming. He's the one that got the skate park off the ground. Many don't know that. He was a big advocate for our basketball leagues that are free to kids, and we'll hope to get started again when we can. Has always coordinated things with the village around walking and biking to school. And I think everybody's going to really miss him. And so I just wanted to say thanks to Principal Hausch. Last two quick things. Great work session on Friday. I cannot say enough how much we appreciated the input from folks from 365 Project, from the community. That also established that we can have a great listening session and use a platform like Zoom to accomplish that. We'll be doing more of that in the future, I expect. And the last thing about YS Pride that I do know, and Sean, I think, has a graphic for this, is they are encouraging everyone to show their pride by decorating their front yards. And as Marianne mentioned, they're planning to have a street parade on a Saturday afternoon, the 27th. If you want to enter the contest, you have to do that by midnight on June 26th. So that's this Friday, next Friday, excuse me. And you have to hashtag it Pride Yard Contest 2020. And also you could post it to the Yellow Springs Pride Facebook page and they'd find it there too. I will say to council, you may have noticed we have been asked to make a statement at the end of the parade. Mayor Pam is going to open the beginning of the parade. And so I'd like to collaborate with Mary Ann McQueen and Judy Kittner to think about how we can recognize YS Pride this year. Okay, that's all the announcements I have. Anything else before we move to the consent agenda?
Lisa's had her hand up. I don't know if she still wants to.
Yep, Lisa.
That's okay. The moment has passed. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so then we've got a consent agenda with the minutes from the June 1st, 2020 council meeting. And I'd love to get a motion to approve that agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And Judy, let's do a quick roll call, please.
Yes, Hausch,
Yes.
McQueen,
I didn't attend the meeting. I read the minutes and what to say, I confirmed them or whatever. Whatever I'm supposed to do.
okay. Okay, Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Okay. Review of the agenda. Anything we need to add or change or delete? Okay, not seeing anything. So Marianne, why don't we go to petitions and communications?
Oh, yes, and we had a number of them. So there are a whole lot included in the council packet, which I will read, and then some others that came in since then. Within the council packet, we had one from Greene County Health, Public Health regarding food training courses and staying healthy. One from Laura Curlis regarding Solar United. Two from Brian Houch, one a letter to Governor DeWine and one regarding Clean Ohio. One from Carl Champney regarding masks. Jane Hawkinsmith Reich regarding masks. Charlene Prestipino, masks. Catherine Hitchcock, masks, and the anti-racism resolution. Maura Laughlin, masks, and the resolution regarding racism. One from Marnie from Starflower, masks. Nancy Mellon, Pan Reich, both masks. Chris Powell, racism resolution. And 4 from Emily Seibel, one on rental assistance funds available. That would be through the, well, actually it's contact Florence Randall at the police department. One on tenants' rights, the Home Inc. annual report and annual meeting invitation, and one supporting the racism resolution. One from Shanna Hammock regarding masks and the racism resolution. Rebecca Cooter, racism resolution. Then several regarding masks, including Susan Alberter, Karen Wintro, Cindy Olenek, Susan Burgos, then Kanetta Sanford regarding the outreach specialist position and masks. Kate Hamilton, that the community outreach specialist position be full-time. Judith Hempling regarding our police and their non-interaction in area demonstrations. Mayor Canine with the proclamation for Dan Beverly. Amy Wamsley with the proposed Pride schedule and yard contest. Council people Hausch and Krieger, a letter addressing racism. Kim Roman, masks. Melissa Howell, masks and addressing racism from the Greene County Public Health Division. And then others that came in since then. The following are people who are supportive of some kind of mask requirement downtown. Priscilla Moore, Eric Clark, John Hudson, Margaret Kobernick, Shirley Christensen, Moira Laughlin, Marcia Walgren, Gary Zaremski, Don Johnson. Tim Baum wants a vote on the matter and not in favor, Jean Lohman. And that is all that I have.
Thank you, Marianne. Okay, so we're going to move into legislation. And first we have the second reading of ordinance 2020-07. Judy, you could read that in by title only, please.
Will do. And before I do, I'll just note that the changes requested at your last meeting have been made to the ordinance you see in front of you. This is ordinance 2020-07, approving the right of village renters to pay to stay.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay, so I heard a motion from Lisa, a second from Laura. We are going to move into the public hearing. This is the second reading, so I'm going to open the public hearing. I'll make a few brief statements, and we also have Deborah Levy from Able Law, who can answer any questions if anyone has any. So I want to say two things. One is just a quick review of the pay and stay ordinance, which would essentially allow, if you are evicted for non-payment of rent, that's the only area of eviction that it covers, then as long as you can come up with what you owe and any late fees, you can stay in that residence anytime during the eviction process. So when it's filed, when it's in proceedings, or right after, if you can come up with the money that is owed. This was brought to us as a potential housing insecurity response that would make sense during the COVID-19 crisis. The other thing that I personally am thinking about is that this is eviction and housing insecurity is something that does address the criminalization of poverty and some of the other aspects of what we're trying to solve with systemic issues around racism. And we'll be talking more about looking more broadly at things that the village can do. But currently, we're looking at this as a response to COVID-19 with the anticipation that housing relief funds are getting to people slowly. So with that, does council have any questions or comments? Okay. And do we have any questions or comments from anyone else on the meeting? Okay. I don't see any that have been sent to me by chat. Deb, is there anything you wanted to say before we close the public hearing?
No, I don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I think we've done a good job of covering this. Again, we appreciate you bringing, your firm bringing this idea to us and bringing that through several of our residents that are familiar with the concept. All right, well then I think I will close the public hearing and ask Judy to call the roll.
Yes. McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Tausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up we have the first reading of ordinance 2020-10. And Judy, I think we can do that by title only as well.
Okay. This is authorizing the cancellation of utility debt owed to the Village of Yellow Springs, which originates prior to calendar year 2015.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the ordinance.
Second.
Got a second for Mary Ann. Okay, so Josue, I believe you're talking about this one?
Yes, thank you, Brian. As you know, we are carrying about $500,000 of age receivables that are 120 days and older, of which $433,000 are over 6 years old. This, according to the Ohio Revised Code, any debt that goes uncollected for 6 years or over or older cannot be collected on. Chris Connor's on the line, and he can jump in greater detail on that. But here we're asking for council to write off the $433,000 of utility debt that we are unable to collect on. I can go in greater detail if council would like.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Josue, if you could, if I recall during the earlier conversation about that, there was, the line of demarcation apparently is 6 years, but there was apparently therefore a portion that's still potentially open to collection activity. Could you share what your plans are with that?
Absolutely. We have our utilities team is very good at following up with collections, and we've got our own collection process to collect on outstanding debt. Colleen Harris is on the line, and she can speak in greater detail on what specifically we do to do our own collections. Some of this debt that's beyond 120 days. We would have to do assessments or take on a more aggressive role in collecting it. That would be either selling it off to a collection agency or hiring a collection agency to collect these funds on our behalf. I think the times is very sensitive given the COVID-19, and as of today, we're unable to, we have our own policy decisions that we would not do any disconnects, and we reduce fee assessments. and we dial back our collection methods. But I think once we are back to more normal operations, and we don't know exactly what normal means moving forward, but when we're able to collect on some of these outstanding utility debt, we would do so. Colleen, did I miss anything?
No, you're correct. Most of the amount that we're asking to be wrote off was carried over from just way back prior to 2014. There were collections that were not done when we did the conversion of the software. It was recommended at that time that we did the write-off. It was never brought to council. This amount has stayed pretty close to the same amount because of the ongoing efforts moving forward from 2015. We've had a really good collection process. So these are just old. They've been on the books. They're just too late to get collected. They should have been wrote off actually in 2012 to 2014.
Mm-hmm. So here, essentially, we're asking you to for authorization to administratively write these off, as we legally cannot collect on them.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, Kevin, to what you brought up, that when Josue and I talked about this and the other item around landowner obligations, we did want to wait to discuss about the ones that are, not outdated, which would be a policy decision that I think we want to wait on looking at until after we're in a better position.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right. If not, I don't think we need a vote. I think this is pretty straightforward, but we do have to wait until our second meeting to pass the ordinance. So I think then we can move into Resolution 2020-20. And Judy, I think we can read that by title only as well.
Indeed. This is the official question and issue ballot general election, November 3rd, 2020, proposed tax levy renewal.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I think Laura beat you to the second, Lisa. Okay, so Josue, are you talking about this, or is this Judy?
I believe it's Judy, but we can all talk about it. It's
okay.
I mean, I can start you off by saying this is one of those housekeeping things. You have to line up the dominoes properly before you can put a levy back on the ballot. So at your last meeting, you passed the resolution enabling the assessment to go to the auditor for confirmation of that we did in fact need a levy. And they did send that back. You've got that in your packet. We've got the certificate of estimated property tax revenue, which has to accompany this resolution once you pass it. And then I take that to the Board of Elections, and then the matter is put on the ballot for November 3rd.
And as you know, we're not asking for an additional tax increase. This is a renewal. The property tax levy help fund mandated service and non-mandated human services. So it's essential to the continuation of our operations and services.
Okay. And I think, we've certainly discussed this, the importance of the operating levy the last couple meetings. It will be something that we will discuss again as we move closer. And we'll also, I expect, have a levy committee that will help with educating the public. So I don't have any other questions or things to highlight. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, so seeing none from the chat either, Judy, I guess we'll call the roll.
All right, Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, Resolution 2020-21. Judy, let's do that one by title only as well.
All right. This is approving a request for funds from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund and affirming that all expenditures therefrom will be in compliance with the requirements of Section 5001 of the CARES Act.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Okay, I heard Mary Ann. And a second?
Second.
Okay, Laura. All right, Josue.
Brian, I have Chris that wants to make a comment. I think we need a couple references that we need to update as the Ohio Assembly is yet to finalize their bill. Chris?
Okay.
If he,
Okay. Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
okay.
I just want to point out that this morning I received some communications indicating that there is a change in this resolution because the reference to 42 USC 601 is inaccurate. It has been subsumed into 42 USC. I believe Judy, is it 801? But this is not this is not the most up-to-date version. What was in the packet? That there's been a supplemental version. It substantively doesn't have a change, but it has the correct citation to the law. It's not unusual, apparently, that after something's passed at the federal level, they might shift it to another section of USC. So fortunately, this was presented to council before we had an opportunity to change it. So that's just my background. So that if anyone's looking at the resolution from the packet, there is a change in one of the clauses there.
It's actually, I updated it online, so the packet is up to date.
And if you're wondering what this is about and why we're bringing it to you now, we're being proactive of positioning the village to be able to receive CARE funds. We've actually registered with the Ohio Grants portal and system. So passing this resolution is another requirement for us to be eligible to receive these funds.
And Josue, am I correct that the CARES funds are different from the FEMA funds?
That's correct. That's correct. There's community development funds and funds to cover some of the revenue losses for municipalities. So we'll have to apply for those. The difference between the three opportunities we're pursuing, we have one is the FEMA grant, and that's to cover primarily medical and emergency response efforts to the coronavirus. So for us, that's covering hand sanitizer, masks, gloves, and a few other protective equipment. We are also pursuing a grant through the Department of Justice for law enforcement, and we're looking to cover items and expenses that we've had as a municipality that are not covered through FEMA. So it's things such as the digital sign, some of the emergency messaging response, additional staffing hours that we've had to put. And the opportunity with the CARES Act will help us cover additional expenses. As you know, we've done a lot to improve our response to coronavirus, not just protective measures, but we did the hand sanitizer, we did the digital signs, we put up the Wi-Fi, internet access at the library and at the school board building. So all of these are unplanned expenses that we had, they were not budgeted for, and with the revenue losses that we are incurring as a direct result of COVID and the impact on employment at the local level, we're doing all that we can to pursue the financial opportunities that the village is able to pursue.
All right, thanks for that update, Josue. And are there any questions or comments about this resolution? But I just want to say I think we've been very proactive since the beginning of the pandemic. And trying to think about how we can keep that budget balanced and keep our citizens safe and keep our services on. So Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll then.
All right, Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and our last piece of legislation, if I can find my arrow, sorry, I'm reading this. So this is Resolution 2020-22. Josue, are you going to share that on the screen?
I can, just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, if you could share it now, that'd be great. And This resolution was not in the packet because many of you know we had our work session on Friday from 5 to 7, and we wanted to get as much community input to help guide what this resolution looked like. And we also, after we read the resolution and discuss it, we're open to any comments that people have. So resolution 2020-22, declaring racism a public health crisis and committing to meaningful action in response to the death, trauma, and injury caused by institutional racism. Whereas the Village of Yellow Springs recognizes that racist beliefs are a direct threat to our residents and visitors, and that it is the responsibility of local government in collaboration with community members to actively identify this threat, prioritize implementation of anti-racist policies, and take other intentional actions to address systemic racism. And whereas race is a social construct with no biological basis and a pervasive form of social violence and oppression. And whereas racism is a social system with multiple dimensions. Individual racism that is internalized or interpersonal, as well as systemic racism that is institutional or structural. That inequitability and inhumanely structure opportunity and assign value based on social interpretations of how one looks. And whereas racism unfairly disadvantages specific individuals and communities while unjustly giving advantages to other individuals and communities, and saps the strength of the whole society through the waste of human resources, and village government is committed to ensuring equitable access to opportunity for every resident, regardless of ethnicity. And whereas racism causes persistent discrimination and disparate outcomes in many areas of life, including housing, education, employment, and criminal justice, and an emerging body of research demonstrates that racism itself is a social determinant of health. And whereas village value number 6 states that council and the village will intentionally promote anti-racism, inclusion, equity, and accessibility through all policies, procedures, and processes. And whereas Council for the Village of Yellow Springs is committed to prioritizing racial equity in our decision-making processes, to acknowledge that communities of color have borne the burdens of inequitable social, environmental, economic, and criminal justice policies, practices, and investments, to understanding that the legacy of these inequitable policies has caused deep disparities, harm, and mistrust, and to recognizing that racial equity is realized when and only when race can no longer be used to predict life outcomes. And whereas while the Village of Yellow Springs has much more work to do and will do better, our local public safety and justice systems have notably improved over the last several years in response to community expectations that translated to policy changes such as a police department social worker, better training, required crisis intervention, de-escalation, implicit bias, and scenario-based training, limiting use of force with a better taser policy, and fully utilizing our mayor's court to enhance social justice. And the entire community must recommit to prioritizing this work. And whereas Black Americans comprise 13% of the US population, but account for 24% of the deaths where race is identified, a death rate 2 times higher than their population share. And whereas Council of the Village of Yellow Springs recognizes that this health disparity is the result of structural discrimination and the lack of healthcare access, economic opportunity, and other social advantages for persons of color, and constitutes therefore a health emergency for citizens of color. Now therefore be it resolved that Section 1, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs affirms its belief that the above noted disparities are the result of intentional policies and constructs and are therefore able to be changed. Section 2, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs reiterates its commitment to the guidelines for village policing developed in collaboration with the 365 Project and other community members, and which prioritizes anti-racism. To prioritizing policies that provide affordability for all residents, and to our village values that highlight being a welcoming community of opportunity for all persons regardless of race. Section 3, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs will continue to pursue real reform to dismantle racism by prioritizing more targeted as well as broader policy changes, including decriminalization of marijuana, better enforcement practices for minor traffic vehicle violations, further restrictions on use of force, and establishing laws that address poverty such as eviction protections, as well as community conversations and a citizen review board that deepen understanding, promote accountability, and inform the development and implementation of meaningful anti-racism action. And finally, Section 4, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs will move forward with its Justice System Advisory Committee, which will bring together community and village team members to identify, develop, and help implement impactful policy initiatives, including funding priorities and practices best fitting community needs that address systemic racism in a transparent and open forum. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so it sounds like we had 3 seconds, and I think we can list them all. Okay, so I would love to open discussion and comments, and I will start with council members. Kevin Stokes, would you like to begin?
I would, thank you. You know, I was sharing with, I'll try not to wax too poetic, but I've been spending a lot of time over the last few days talking to people about my feelings about racism in general. And, you know, I will, from time to time, use the phrase, the vestiges of slavery, you know, and I shared with someone as though they weren't sure whether racism still existed. And I said, well, racism is still real because slavery is real. And, you know, I think all of what you read just now, Brian, is very well written. I really appreciate all the effort that's been put into it. I don't really know why there seems to be such a sea change happening now. You know, all the things that are happening throughout the country, you know, the renaming of military bases. You know, it's interesting, all these things that are wrong have been wrong for a very long time. You know, but there just seems to be this momentum now to want to make some substantive changes. And I think the comment in some of the reading that you just did in one of the sections talked about racism institutionally being intentional. And since it was done intentionally, it can be undone intentionally. And the one thing that I did share also with someone, and it's more of a historical reference than somewhat of a biblical reference, you know, but, you know, the Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. And so far, Black Americans have been enslaved here in America for 400 years. And each of those periods ended after 400 years. I'm not predicting that slavery is now ending completely, but the fact that there still are vestiges of slavery, we appreciate everything that's happened over the last few decades to move us in this direction, you know, but this is a real, I think, a watershed moment, and it behooves each of us to consider what we can do to really take advantage of the momentum that's being generated throughout the country and throughout the world. And I am happy to have any part in moving the ball forward, as it were. And again, I appreciate Council moving forward with this resolution and legislation.
Thanks for that, Kevin. And I completely agree with you. This is the time, and it's been the time for a while for us to really take action and step up. Laura Curlis?
Well, there's so many good things happening in society right now. And if Yellow Springs folks want to just have a small taste of that, come out to a demonstration. I've been to the last 3, and there's probably going to be one this Saturday as well, led by our young people. They're moving. Good people are telling about the good things they're doing, and so many really wise people are writing about some reforms, common sense reforms, and reforms being rightly pushed by people right now. So with that said, I don't want council to forget that we have worked on these issues before, and the Justice System Task Force, which has done its work in the past few years, it ended its work. But let's not forget the reports. There were a couple of them. You can find them. I know you can't quite see that, but we have them in our records. And those folks did really great work and made some really good suggestions, some of which were adopted, some of which could still be adopted, and those should be looked at again. With that said, also, I've spent a lot of time collecting these, I call it best ideas, that are being published from legislators at the state level, from the ACLU, from Black Lives Matter. Everything that I read that has an idea, I've been collecting that. And I would like to add to when we get to future agenda items, I would like to submit a letter to council to consider sending to the governor. The governor said he would propose legislation around the issues of racial equality and improving policing and other issues in our society on that topic of racial justice. So I would like to submit that for council's consideration next time with it has very specific proposals. And these aren't my ideas, they're others, and I've just tried to collect them into one letter. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate that. And yes, I mean, I think at this point, if we approve this resolution, the next step is to start looking at those actions that we can take immediately. Mary Ann McQueen?
Well, I certainly support the resolution. And I guess I sort of always look for practical things. So I am going to be preparing a statement for next council meeting, which I'm entitling Rethinking Yellow Springs Policing, and making some suggestions for radical change to consider. I also am aware that while certainly racism exists in Yellow Springs, not only is it a problem outside of Yellow Springs, but I would say it's a bigger problem outside of Yellow Springs. And I think it behooves us to make a decision whether we as a council or village government want to engage in any activities beyond our village. For example, things at the county level and at the state level, because that could be very meaningful beyond our little spot on the map in Ohio. So I will be submitting some more stuff for the next meeting.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Mary Ann. Lisa Krieger?
Yes, thank you. I of course support this. And for me, what's important is the work that comes next. I agree with Curlis about the importance of reviewing the work of the Justice System Task Force and the Wasserman study that included actionable steps that we have not taken. I agree that it seems like there's an appetite on many levels, and particularly, you know, on the national scale, but also here in Yellow Springs, for change. And I think that institutional racism in the village hides in places that perhaps I, as a white person, wouldn't even notice, or in microaggressions that I wouldn't recognize. And I'm working very, very hard to be more aware. And that's a journey that, you know, will never end. I think that we have to continue to look very closely at the funding and policies of our police. McQueen, I share your interest and would be glad to work with you on that if you're not already working with another council member. One of the things that I'm thinking about, and that really sticks in my head, is that I want our police department to be peace officers. And I want them to be here to serve and protect, not hunt and punish. That's where I want to get, at least with our police department. And I think there's other policies that we should look at to see how we can act locally. And I share Curlis's comment about the peaceful protests. In fact, while I thank our peace officers for their involvement, I didn't see them as handling the protest. The protest was peaceful, and the people who need to be thanked are the people who participated in that. And of course, I'm grateful for our police department for being collaborative and peaceful as well. But it wasn't really something that had to be handled. It was something we did together and will continue to do together. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Josue?
I'm encouraged that we're having these conversations. As a brown man, I have experienced the discrimination and all the things that come with it. And I also recognize the privilege that I have to want to be in the position that I am now and have the resources that I have, whether that's the academic access and all the things that come with the roles that I've had the opportunity to fill. And I'm also encouraged that we have a great team here in the administration. Brian Carlson is unlike any other person I know and unlike any other police chief I know. And I know he's committed to to driving and being the police department of the future. So we're excited. There's some things that Lisa Krieger mentioned that were in the Wasserman report and other things. And we worked on them. We worked on certain things. We piloted the committee, and we have done a significant amount of work. But there's so much more to be done, and we're committed to the change. Chief Carlson's got some great ideas, and I hope that you guys see also the change that we have done in just the 1 year that I've been here, and what Police Chief Carlson and I have been able to do with policies and updating our bulletin or training bulletins and other things. Certainly we've done some of that work, but there's so much more work to do. And we're listening, but we're also working behind the scenes to making sure that we are prepared to lead the peace officers of the future.
Thanks, Josue. Chief Carlson?
Thank you, Brian. I'm in full agreement and support with this resolution. Policing as a whole nationally does require massive internal change. And I do feel good, if you will, about what we have accomplished here in Yellow Springs through the addition of the social worker, which was part of Justice System Task Force. Kate Hamilton brought that to us. That's been highly successful. However, I believe that we can make a significant change in our small community. And I also believe that this racism epidemic is a national problem. We can make the changes here with the police department, but I also need the guidance and leadership from residents. My door is always open, and I am eager to roll up my sleeves and start talking serious talk. Some of it may not be preferred, but we need to start having the dialogue in the language. But I appreciate the folks who've been standing behind us. I think most of you know that our department tries to do the best that we can in understanding diversity, gender, and issues that many humans may have in time of crisis and need. Thank you all for this. That's great language.
Thanks, Chief. So I just want to say a few things myself, and then if we have any other comments. I think the first piece for me is that, I know that sometimes there's the impression that resolutions are passed because it's the trendy thing to do, and they don't mean a lot. This, I know, is important to everyone on the village team and to our community, and very important to me. So you are not going to hear any platitudes coming from the village. You're going to see action like you've seen for the last several years. We've had a good track record in starting to make changes that make a difference that are referenced in the resolution. And as Josue and others have said, we're going to continue to prioritize, put that at a high priority level, and continue that work and commitment. And personally, related to the Justice System Advisory Committee, I would like to take on, at least temporarily, the council lead. I've talked to Lisa Krieger, and she's willing to be the second on that. But I think it is important, to the point that Chief made, that we start to engage right away so that we can continue the dialogue that we've had in the past and that we saw on Friday. And then we can always adjust and refine as we go. But I think we're at the point where we can't wait on something like the Justice System Committee to continue. So I'll stop there. And are there any other comments or questions? Mary?
I would like to say that there's this saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So when I'm thinking about the policing, I'm thinking of that way of looking at it. And I do really appreciate everyone in our police department and all the work that has been done. And I am sure that, if you were going to rank police departments in this country, we would be in the top 1%. My concern is that we have, over the course of, really hundreds of years, I guess, used police to do functions that really are not legitimate. And increasingly, with the social devolution that we've had in this country in terms of housing, in terms of food security, in terms of drug abuse, in terms of criminalization, and the whole racism that's involved within that, that police have ended up with a lot of the problems that really shouldn't be in there, shouldn't be theirs to handle. So that's sort of where I'm coming from and what I want to make some proposals regarding.
All right, thanks, Marianne. Thanks for fleshing that out. Anything else?
Yep, Brian, if I could just make a comment on one of the whereases that states that Black Americans have a death rate, account for 24% of the deaths. After deaths, it should say from COVID-19.
Okay.
Races identified. Otherwise, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So either that could be added, that could be pulled out if you wanted it to be a broader statement about health concerns.
I think it's good to update that. So we'll add that when we vote on it. And also, since Judy, you mentioned that, I want to thank Judy for all the support that she provided to help prepare this resolution. I appreciate it. Anything else? Okay, seeing nothing, I appreciate the feedback and the discussion, and I think it's really important that our community understands where the village is at with these issues. So Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes. Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlitz.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we are now moving into citizen concerns, which is the time on the agenda to comment about any item that's not on the agenda. So this will not be the time to talk about masks or face coverings, because that is going to be under new business. And otherwise, most other topics are up for grabs. Judy, I know that you had a written statement, but I also see that Dave is on the call. So Dave, do you want to make the statement yourself, or do you still want Judy to read that for you? Okay, I'm not seeing him take himself off mute. So Judy, you want to go ahead?
Sure. This is a statement from Dave Bogries. So I know you don't want to discriminate against people based on certain things, but I guess other things are fair game, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. Are you going to discriminate against me because of my skin color, my race, my gender, who I love, how old I am, or how young, my height, my lack of height, my beauty or lack of beauty? Will you hold it against me because of my dominant hand, eye color, how straight my teeth are, where I'm from, where my family is from, y'all, what words I use, my education level or lack of book learning, or my scholarly vocabulary or lack of it, my accent based on where I'm from, maybe my primary language, hair color, the perfume I wear, or my natural scent, my fingernail color or length, my piercings or lack of piercings, my tattoos or lack of tattoos, who my friends are, who my friends aren't, or where I work, where I don't work, what my spouse does, what my income level is or isn't, what my reputation is, what kind of clothes I wear or don't, my weight or my slender build, my healthiness or my illness and ailments. All of these things are rather ludicrous, but you're happy to discriminate against me based on where I currently live. Please don't discriminate by keeping out non-residents on certain days. And this is referencing the pool. Giving residents priority is understandable, and this can be done just by letting them have the first hour of each day. Sometimes with low turnout, it isn't even an issue.
Okay, thanks, Judy, and thank you, Dave, for those comments. Do we have any other citizen concerns? Okay. I'll just say a few things that came up in the chat earlier. One was a question about fireworks not happening. One was, and so remember that's different from the parade. One question was, have we considered Juneteenth to be a village holiday? I think that's a great suggestion. We will talk about that in the future. There's a comment that we'll raise later about masks. And the last question, Josue, I think you should just follow up on that because it's not really clearly related to council. Okay, so any other citizen concerns before we move into old business? Okay, Philip, we're good? Okay. All right, then on old business, our first topic is our regular update on village finances, Josue and Colleen.
Thank you, Brian. We've been in touch with Rita and the auditor's office, and at this time, we do not have new information to report on. Our account manager at Rita is looking to provide us an update by the end of the week based on the April and May actual data that's come in. So I apologize, I don't have any new news to share, but to some extent, the no new news is good news so far.
Okay. Do any council members have questions for Josue or Colleen? Okay, not seeing any. Any questions from citizens? All right, then we will move into another regular topic, which is when we are prepared to transition into live meetings again and off of the Zoom platform. I will just open up by saying that some of you know that we had an executive session this past Saturday, and it was to interview individuals for the village solicitor position, which is something we put out a request for qualifications several months ago. And all that was discussed in our meeting. But we chose to conduct those interviews in rooms A and B. And so each council member had a long table. We were very well distanced. We had masks at the ready. We came in and left with them. There were only, Josue was the other person in the room, and then the one person being interviewed. And what we had realized from that experience, or have realized, is that we certainly have the ability to set this up in a safe way. We've also talked about if we need to accommodate more people, if people are attending the meeting, that we can move to the Bryan Center gym. And Josue, do you want to add any other details about what you guys have looked at?
I think as many municipalities are transitioned to a virtual space for meetings, there's some technology aspects that we had to resolve. One of them, Brian, as you experienced yourself, is microphone and sounds. So from the technology aspect, we are prepared to handle an in-person meeting with multiple folks and audio and video feed that needs to be transmitted to our viewers online. This is different. It requires a different process as our council chamber set up. As you know, we had to account for more physical distancing and a different camera setup. But we are prepared to handle that additional requirement. I think the real issue comes down to, as we transition to these in-person meetings, how do we balance the risk for individuals and the benefit? I appreciate council being sensitive and conscious of the concerns from staff. As I said before, that the concerns from staff are there, and I won't minimize them, as I understand the concerns are in perspective vary in our community. So to that extent, that's still there, but we have a process and a technology that would accommodate the in-person meeting for council members and still provide some protection or less of an exposure to our employees, and that is being able to have the equipment set up in that room, whether that's A and B, Brian, or the gym, and having less, not require that all of our staff be in person at the meeting.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing, Josue, that I think is good to look at here, which is whether there is some way of blending that does allow for some of the folks on the team to be able to remote in if they have things to present.
Right, and certainly we've worked on those things, and we can accommodate the concerns. The other thing I'd like to point out is, since we've gone online and we've been tracking some of our numbers, as of today, just on the 3 platforms that we can track the participants on, we're at 70 people. And that's not counting Channel 5, which we have no way of measuring how many viewers we have. And of those 70 people, they can all participate through Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook. So there's something to be said about the technology there. We're reaching our folks. And I think there's going to be an expectation of some of that moving forward.
Yes, very good point to raise. So do
Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa?
Yeah, I would encourage us to, well, let me just say first, this situation where we're needing to be distanced and wear masks, it's not going to go away soon. So I'm really trying to challenge myself to think of maybe a transition plan. And I was inspired by how well the meeting in room A and B worked. And I believe that we could accommodate, I think, up to 10 people in that space. My suggestion is that we don't do a this or that, but we do a both and. What I mean by that is that we would all the council members would still have computers in front of them and be on Zoom just as we are now. But we would be co-located in that room A and B. But you would be able to see our faces just like we can now, but also the larger camera that can scan the room will be there, and we can be heard on a common audio. So what that means is that we would have our computers on, you would be able to see me just as you can, but my sound would be turned off. And instead of being connected via my phone or via voice over IP on a PC, we would be caught in a central audio. I then also, though, am very concerned that more than ever, we always need to maximize the opportunity for community input. That's why I think it's a both and. We keep this same model where we're getting great participation online, we're getting a lot of comments, but we also watch our spacing in the room so that if there is an individual who would like to come and speak in person, they can come in and speak in person. They can come in with their mask, they can sit in a physically distanced place, and they can talk with us in person. We can't have too many people all in that room at once, but I think we may want to invite Megan Bachman from the Yellow Springs News to be in the room with us, and I really think by having a both and approach that allows us to be together and also maintains all of these channels that we have running, it may be a transition before we move to a larger space with more participants in the gym. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other feedback from council members?
I'll certainly echo Lisa's comments. Obviously, she's thought more about it since our conversation on Saturday morning. But I think our meeting, in that it absolutely made sense for us to be in the room to provide more of the best professional environment for us going through those interviews. The fact that we were there in the room together, it just allowed us to actually live through, what we're talking about in terms of that interim step of us being together. Josue was part of that conversation, so he knows all the technical challenges. I'm certainly good with Megan being in the room. I don't have a problem with individuals coming in to speak to us in person. I just think the management of those individuals presents right now an additional challenge in terms of how and where you stage those folks, et cetera. So just that it will require more staff. But again, some interim step, because again, this will go on for a while, and in that we ought to do some forward step to the degree that it does provide some continuity for us to be together and so the folks can see us and feel like they're really communicating with us. I think it's a good move. And so I would definitely support us moving in that direction slowly, carefully, and safely.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Marianne or Laura? Marianne, no. Laura? Okay. All right, so what I'm hearing is that for the first meeting in July, we're going to try some kind of blended hybrid model where we will co-locate and then we'll kind of see what other things we can and can't do based on the space. So I'll work with Josue and Judy, Sean and Philip, and then council will get an update about that. Does that all work? Make sense?
Brian,
can we open for comments, please?
Sure.
Can I throw you a comment real quick?
Yep.
This has been discussed with the Ohio clerks. Actually, this just came up today and I have a lot of feedback. So out of the about 27 folks who responded, it's about 50-50 as to whether people are staying virtual or actually going into a hybrid model, which surprised me. So a lot of folks are doing the hybrid model, and one community, Menora, Ohio, is meeting under a large tent outside. So that's what's happening. So it looks like you're right in keeping with what's trending.
Okay, thanks, Judy. All right.
And managing expectations a little bit, that first one may be rocky, may not, but as with anything, we try something new, things happen.
Yeah, we've done pretty good. And I know you guys will figure it out. What's that, Kevin?
I said, that's why they have the word disclaimer. I always kind of have a disclaimer to make sure all of our bases are covered.
All right, thanks. All right, so Lisa asked for any other comments from citizens. Do we have any additional comments? Okay, if not, we will continue our work in progress with how we engage. But I do love that we are thinking about how we continue all the options for feedback, because I do think that has been a really positive aspect of this.
Brian,
okay. Yeah.
Brian, are you taking comments from the two video feeds? I see some folks wanting to make comments.
Okay, I haven't seen anything on my sheet. Yeah, I mean, if you want to summarize them real quick, sure.
Cindy Davis, please keep the meetings live to villagers as you transition into in-person meetings. Patricia Schneider, wondering if my comments are being read. I've tried to comment on the YouTube stream and cannot figure out why it's not accessible to me. I believe Patricia wants to make an additional comment. We have a question from the YouTube channel if you are taking comments from the general public or just council. So I don't know if you.
Well, we did just open to comments. So if someone's got something that's relevant to this, I guess some of the technical issues with YouTube, I'm not sure that that's related to this discussion. And the other question about, or suggestion about keeping the meetings live, we've been doing that for a long time. So that's not going to change. What is streaming live is not going to change. The question is whether we're together as a council or in separate locations. So did a comment come through, Josue?
Just to provide more time for people and allow for more people to speak. I think this has something to do with the delay that is inherent to any live stream.
Right.
So I have a question about that. So yeah, and I'm not doing it now, but I have at sometimes been on Zoom and also had YouTube going off to the side until it just drives me crazy. But I'm just wondering if, I don't know exactly what that delay is. It's not real long, but I guess we need to consider that when we open the floor for questions, when we're looking for comments. If folks are just on YouTube, we say it here, but they don't hear it till what, 10 seconds or so later. And the time that we're waiting for comments needs to go beyond that. Is that something that's worthwhile consideration?
I mean, I think, go ahead.
I was going to say that maybe as you have done, Brian, I think you've done a good job at queuing it up, that you'd be taking those comments and questions and just pausing, waiting for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, one of the things that Sean just passed along is that there's a 1 minute delay with YouTube. We know there's been a delay, and that's a challenge. I will say almost all the topics we discuss tend to go on for 10 minutes or more. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that waiting additional minutes is what the issue is. But I would always encourage people to get on the Zoom call, make their comments live, just like they would at a council meeting if we were together. And again, we'll continue to think about ways to work on the technology, but there is a built-in delay that, it's just going to be part of it. Okay, so do we have anything else, or are we ready to move to the next topic?
There's just one more piece. Kate commented on the size of the room. Room A and B seems to be way too small for you to properly distance. Athena Fannin agreed with Kate. Athena to Lisa agreed with what was being said about maintaining the virtual channels. There was a comment that came in, but it's related to mass, which is not on topic here, unless you want to hear it, Brian.
No, I think we need to stay on topic and try to move efficiently through our agenda. So anything else about this?
Just a comment that we need to be careful. I've got a comment here on the chat that folks need to state their village association per council rules and make sure that you are in fact meaning to make a statement to council. Make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Judy. Okay. So anything else about the meeting format? All right, last topic on old business is the sort of making a decision about the landlord responsibility for utilities. We had Josue and I said that we would meet to talk about next steps. And Josue, do you want to talk about what the proposal is for next steps?
Yes, thank you, Brian. As Brian mentioned, we've met to discuss what our options are, and one of the things that we needed to review were the legal framework in which utilities, specifically municipal utilities, are moving forward with handling disconnects and other collection efforts. So as it stands right now, the public utilities are being managed by the Public Utilities Commission, and the Public Utilities Commission is allowing entities to start aggressive collection efforts, including disconnects. We received a word from the governor's office that the order that prohibits the disconnect of water services has been lifted, and that would take effect July 10th. So why that's important? It's not that we are eager to jump on board and to do disconnects, but at the end of the day, we have a business to operate, and we're looking to operate within the best practices and the legal boundaries. So all that to say is that across the state, the utility enterprises are moving forward with collection efforts. Why that's important? It's because we need to make a distinction between where we've put the financial burden on the landlords as a result of state policy and legal requirement versus us as a municipality putting that financial burden on landlords. So post-July, we couldn't do anything up until this point. So the financial liability that the landlords have, it's not specifically due to our local policies, but state policy and regulations. So that's where things are around utilities and collection of debt. One of the things that we're going to do come July is that we're going to automatically offer a 6-month payment plan to all the utility customers that are in arrears, and those that for the utility debt that is owed, and so that and ask that all current payments or current usage from that moving forward are kept up to date. So folks could be making payments to 2 separate arrangements. One is for their monthly usage and deferring the payments over a 6-month period for anything that is in arrears. That is the proposal that we're going to take to the landlords. And it's important to have their input, because in the past it has been tradition that the landlords have a say on the payment plans that are arranged with tenants. So that's a proposal we'll be bringing to the landlords. I'm confident that the landlords would appreciate the thought that we've given to this issue, and we'll take it from there. I think it's a good proposal. Brian, did I cover our conversation? Okay, I think we've had some video feed issues with Brian's computer. Do we have any questions from council members?
Well, I just think it's great that you're going to offer a payment plan. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Laura. We've had a change in the setup here. Brian has joined me here. So.
Yeah, we thought we would work on our co-locating and get some further practice today. So I think then we're ready for new business. And no, I'm good. As we move into new business, I just want to highlight what Judy emphasized before, which is that please, if you're going to make or you want to make a comment, that you indicate that you want this comment to come to council or question. And secondly, it's ideal if you get on the Zoom chat or on the Zoom meeting. And if we haven't put that information in the chats for YouTube and Facebook yet, we should do that in case anyone wants to get on the Zoom meeting to make those comments. And of course, state your name and if you're a village resident. So with that, our next topic is to talk about the requirement for facial coverings in the village. And let's see. I think we heard a lot about this on Friday at our work session. We've gotten a lot of communications, letters. I know that there's a change.org survey, which captures, I think, people from around the world and their opinions about what Yellow Springs should do, as well as some people that live in town. And we've got a variety of other inputs that we've received. So I think we should probably start with council making follow-up comments, since we didn't have a lot of time for that on Friday. And then we'll look for any unique comments that would add to our decision-making. So I think Lisa Krieger, if you want to begin with any high points that you want to make about this issue.
Yes, thank you. And I want to state that for me, this meeting and this topic is the most grave and important and difficult perspective that I've ever formed and that I'm sharing here in my tenure in council. And so none of my comments are taken lightly and have been months in the formulating. However, I want to say that with incredible gratitude to the many, many people who have written and who have called and who have written some more. And there's multiple surveys of community members. There's surveys of business owners. I've had conversations with business owners. Again, this is a very, very serious topic. And I want you to know that what I'm saying here, if it may be not popular with everybody, I feel very seriously about it. And, you know, we have to make difficult decisions in our local area when we lack strong county and state support. And I don't mean that in any way to be derogatory towards the wonderful people at Greene County Public Health who have been so supportive and given so much of their time to us during this. And I do note that Governor DeWine has clearly stated that local ordinances are an option. And I believe that, like in other things, we have the responsibility to act locally in the interest of the safety of our community. And so today, I'm calling on this council to begin the work to require masks in the business district of Yellow Springs when physical distancing is not possible. And this will affect the outside spaces and many business interiors. It wouldn't impact people exercising on the bike trail or restaurants who already have established physical distancing. Let me say a little bit more about what I have in mind. I envision the downtown Yellow Springs business district as an interior-exterior mall. And this is not an uncommon thing outside of the United States. As a community square with clearly demarcated boundaries where there would be some sort of indicating barriers, not to keep people out, but just to mark the demarcation of the business district of Yellow Springs, and clear signage that says, your entry in the village downtown of Yellow Springs, and if you are coming in here, you have to wear masks. And we would have to have masks there to hand out, and people would understand that if they come into that area and they choose not to wear masks, that they would be invited to leave or that there would be some penalties. I envision some sort of tiered vigilance that would have to be done. I was moved by the comments about not being so afraid to do the right thing simply because of how difficult it would be to enforce. As I said before about policing, this isn't about hunting and punishing. This is about serving and protecting and approaching people and saying, would you like to put on a mask? If not, you know, there may be a warning involved. We'd have to work out the details. And I know that Josue and the chief would be up to this task. And I have not talked with the chief about this, but I do think that the philosophy of kindness is not working for us. The number of people that are wearing masks are going down. There's evidence in certain parts of Ohio and other parts of the country that the curve was flattened, but cases are going to pick up. And at this point, we have to have masks available. We have to require masks. And I'm saying this as a doctorally prepared nurse. I cannot live within my ethics without calling out to this council to start the work to make masks required in the downtown business district when physical spacing is not possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And Laura Curlis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a very serious issue. I speak with a background, I'm a former EMT, I'm not a nurse, but I'm not unfamiliar with health protocols, and a former prosecutor. And I very much am concerned about what enforcement looks like. And we already have issues with infraction related, what many people would call over-policing, selective enforcement. That's also been shown to happen around the country with social distancing and masking, that certain populations, it's enforced more often. I'm not sure that our police would do that, but that also is a problem. I've been struggling to know what the science means, because you read that, yeah, there's a slight spike in some places, but that could be due to more testing. Ohio's still doing really well with the R0 factor. Cases are still really low. And we've had 6 weeks of good weather, and we have not had a spike. So I called the Ohio Department of Health this morning, and I asked, first of all, is there any community in Ohio that is requiring masks? And I was told no. Then I asked, can you tell me scientifically why, we've had plenty of people in our community, our destination town, and we thankfully haven't had a spike. Why is that? Silence. And I said, well, I guess we're just lucky. There was no answer. And I'm grateful we haven't had this spike. I also downloaded and sent to council the ODH's most recent directive. And that directive specifically says, a lot of people have written us, say they have vulnerabilities, and I get what community spread is. However, the directive also says ODH still recommends vulnerable people, and they list some of the conditions, should stay home. And that would be a way to ameliorate some of their concerns if they avoid, as many of us do, downtown when it's busy. Further, and I think Karen Wintrow is going to speak, but the survey said of businesses that 68% do not want us mandating what they do on their property. So I think that's important to consider. And finally, on the enforcement side, we would be putting our employees, the police officers, in close contact with unmasked people, and a lot of them, if we want to really enforce this, and then send all of them to Mayor Pam to address. And there are health conditions that are exceptions to the ODH directive. And those people would raise that as a defense, as well as other kinds of defenses. I just think it's not very workable. I'm aware there are places that are doing that. And if we had a spike here, I would probably reconsider my position. But at this point, I'm not in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Kevin Stokes?
So if we're looking at this as a resolution, I think it's certainly an easier conversation if we just start there as a resolution. So in short, my colleagues have, I think, laid all the arguments out. But as I said, I think in our last meeting, if it wasn't Friday, I think it's time for us to move forward in terms of doing something else. In consideration for what I would say most residents are asking for. So if we were to draft something in terms of resolution that I'm sure it would say all the right things, but wondering if we could consider moderating the messaging a little bit to say, first of all, overall for that downtown area, we should have a requirement for masks. And that's for the most part going to cover the folks outside on sidewalks and the businesses where the business owner chooses to require masks. And I'm just sort of suggesting this as a pseudo compromise because I understand that some businesses, well, they said they don't want to be told what to do, but then I understand that there are some businesses that don't want to enforce the use of masks inside their store. I'm sure they don't mind if folks do wear masks, but they don't want to enforce it. So I'm wondering if it makes sense to have that sort of again, blanket coverage requiring masks, but have that caveat that, if the business owner doesn't want to do it in his or her business, then that's their prerogative. Then the residents that would have the issue with that, then, they can choose, not to patronize those businesses in the meantime. And it also, I think we all understand what we mean when we say the downtown district, but if we do draft something, we probably ought to be very specific about where we're talking about, as opposed to, the anecdotal understanding of what the downtown business district is, because folks will include themselves in it when they want to be in it, and then exclude themselves when they don't want to. And I'm not casting aspersions when I say that. So, in short, and I haven't been as short as I thought I would, but I'm in favor of us in offering stronger encouragement. Resolution, I think it's easy. If we get to ordinance, then it's I would moderate my comments perhaps a little bit, but in terms of a resolution, yes, I think there should be a resolution requiring it, the hand sanitizing, washing and face coverings. but then allow, like I said, the businesses to sort of, do their own thing within reason. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Mary Ann McQueen?
Yeah. Well, it's my opinion, my sense that most people in the village want people to be wearing masks downtown. I'm pretty convinced of that. It also seems that our message is definitely not working. I think be kind and then with a mask, it's clearly not getting it. Either people aren't understanding it or they don't care. Personally, I am very offended by seeing people downtown in groups without masks. I judge it as being disrespectful to our village. I sort of assume that along with maybe they don't really get the message, that they think anything goes in Yellow Springs, like we're free and you can do what you want to do. And so what's the difference? I don't know that that's the case, but I sort of assume that. I also think that there's probably very low risk, actually, especially if people are being careful, of contracting the disease while you're outside. I do think it's possible to avoid the people if you want to do it. I don't go downtown when visitors are here. I didn't before, and I try to avoid it now. So from that aspect, I'm not actually convinced that it is that. I think it's possible to be safe. So, I'm looking, and it's a very mixed thing. I think we all would agree. I can support having some mechanism saying masks are required downtown. I'm very concerned about having our police department do that. I've stated a couple times that having a group of people, I think in New York, they had a group called the ambassadors or something. Having a group of people who in pairs maybe would go around, talk to people, carry masks with them. I would definitely support something like that. And I'd be definitely willing to be a part of that. So far, no one else seems to have picked up on that. But as I say, I'm really concerned about having to put our police in that position, especially with all of the anti-policing stuff that's going on. I haven't done a lot of research, but the research that I've done on cities that have done this in this country have done it while things are peaking. I'm not aware actually of any cities in this country at this point that are requiring it. The ones that I've read about have the time period has passed. They're not doing it now. There are other countries that are doing it as countries, interestingly, but that's a real different situation where you have a whole country that is, everyone's in alignment about that as opposed to a tiny little village. I think that this situation is bringing to a head also the resentment that I think exists with a fair amount of people in this community about the tourists. And I suspect that some of the feelings are that resentment that our downtown is taken over by tourists, especially over the weekend. And there is resentment about it. And when I say that, I'm no blame. That's what's happened in our village, that we've become a destination place and we have a tourist economy. So, the two people that I know that are most closest to who are immune compromised did not support a regulation about masks. And I have a friend who loves to to be playful. And she suggested that we pass around yellow noodles, you know, those things that you swim that are 3 feet long, and two people have them and they'd be 6 feet. So I told a friend that I would say this is, but you know, if there's some ways to sort of make things playful, that probably would be good. So I will support what council decides, but at this point, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Am I on mute?
No, you're unmuted.
Okay. Thank you, Marianne. And I think I should state some of my thoughts before we hear citizen comments so that everyone knows where council members are at. So I have done quite a bit of research in a lot of different ways, not only the science aspects, but also following up on the communities that have had requirements. And I think it's important to understand the background, which was highlighted by Marianne and a few others, that many communities that had a requirement for facial coverings have since rescinded those. I know that a lot of them are moving to a strongly suggested but not required, and these are even places that are experiencing spikes. I know of one community where this requirement was overturned by the courts. Several of the examples that we followed up on were proposed to council and voted down. And then I mentioned on Friday that many of the communities that do have some kind of regulation have made enforcement self-compliance. So there is definitely that concern about enforcement that was shared by many council members. So saying all that, here's the way that I'm looking at this point, but still open to hear more before making a decision. The first thing is I've been asking, what is the problem specifically that we're trying to solve? And I think that Marianne has captured it, which is that while some people might want people to wear masks if they leave their home, if they're in their backyard, if they're on the 20 feet away, I think most people are focusing on the gathering downtown and the lack of distancing. And then, of course, that triggers in facial coverings. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we should not, in my mind, just be targeting masks. But if we do pass some kind of regulation, we should include the triad. Distancing is first, facial coverings is second, hand sanitizing, hand washing is third. And so we should be looking at all of those things and promoting them, and then figuring out how do we get that compliance. The next thing I think about is I do think a resolution, as opposed to a requirement, or well, let's say something like an ordinance, like Kevin was talking about, could be a formal statement of our expectations in the village, which is something that I'm not clear that we've done. A lot of the research I've read has shown that people get mixed messages like they are in Yellow Springs. And because of that, it leads to apathy and people not complying. I differ from most that think that the Be Kind doesn't work and that we've tried signs and that didn't work. What I have seen is that we have done some things, but if we're serious about addressing this issue, it's going to require not just local government making a statement or passing a law. I hope everybody understands it's not that easy, but that the community has to be behind this. So some of the things Marianne mentioned, like the ambassadors helping to give people masks so that they understand. Honestly, not everybody knows what the policies are because so many communities do not care about the mask wearing. We also have to have our local businesses committed to consistency in our messaging. And we have to overall have more signage, more clarity. We need to facilitate this. So I don't believe that we have made a committed, concerted effort to approach this yet. That's why I would recommend that we think about a resolution that makes that statement clear. We start with self-compliance, we reevaluate at the next council meeting and so on, and we continue to look at how we need to refine or tweak this. But honestly, if we don't have that, we're all in this together village approach, we're just passing a law, and even if we try to give everybody a ticket, is not going to achieve the goals that I think people are thinking that it will. And that is proven by pretty much all the examples that are out there, with a few exceptions. So I guess the last thing I will say is I really agree with all the comments I've heard, and in particular, the point about, I think Lisa made, about common sense stuff. So again, we're not saying if you're in your backyard gardening by yourself that you need a mask. If you are distancing from other people, all right, that is the most important thing. You know, I think that we can't just write this off with extremes. We need to look at a reasonable solution that addresses the issue. The last thing I'll say is I think it's pretty easy to identify what we mean by downtown or our central business district. In my mind, it's Limestone, it's Walnut, it's Dayton, it's Corey, and it's Xenia. And there's a little bit of extensions on those, but that is not hard to demarcate in my mind either. So those are my initial thoughts. And again, the most important thing I will underscore is whatever we do, we need to all be committed to seeing it make a difference. So I'll stop there. I know that Karen Wintro has had her hand up, so we'll start with her, and then we'll open up, we'll hear other comments as well.
Thanks, Brian. Karen Wintro, I'm the Executive Director of the Yellow Springs Chamber. And I do want to say that the Chamber doesn't really have a position on this. We are speaking for our members. We are an entity of members. We support the downtown businesses, so that is the information that we're conveying. I want to thank you for taking it up. I know how complicated this has been because the directives, the information from the public health community has been all across the board, but it does seem as if there is becoming a little bit more emphasis on mask wearing. We've been talking about this. I've been warning the members, I've been warning the downtown businesses that this is probably coming back and being discussed. So last week when I realized it was coming back, possibly to consider some sort of legislation, I did a survey of our members. And those people that responded are local businesses. The people that received the survey were local downtown destination businesses, not the hundreds of members that we have that may not be located in Yellow Springs. They were Yellow Springs businesses. The overwhelming response, nearly 70%, and I think Laura may have already mentioned that, is that the businesses prefer to make their own policies and enforce those policies for their business. The people that have been doing that, the businesses that are requiring masks, it's been very successful. They aren't reporting any difficulties. They aren't reporting encounters or confrontations with customers, and they're actually reporting over 70% compliance with mask wearing in their businesses. And that's what I'm seeing. This past week that the public restrooms have been open, I'd say 70% of the people that come into the public restrooms are wearing masks. So I'm seeing mask compliance. And when people email me and ask me what's open, I always tell them. A lot of times people ask if masks are required. If they don't, I tell them all of our messaging talks about masks. So I know that you all need to consider the views of the entire community, but I do want you to encourage you to consider the businesses equally. I really want to say a few things just in support of the businesses. as I've just been hearing this sentiment expressed that citizens make such a large financial investment to live in Yellow Springs, and that somehow people that don't live here shouldn't be able to enjoy Yellow Springs, or shouldn't be able to visit, or should somehow be excluded. But I also want to point out the investment that our businesses are making to have a business in Yellow Springs. This is their livelihood. This is their future that they have put into this community. And they are supporting the tax base of Yellow Springs. They're supporting jobs for our citizens. And right now they're so concerned with citizen perception because they know that their livelihood is dependent upon those visitors that come to town. And I do think that Marianne identified what a lot of the issue is, and that is a resentment of the visitors who come to town. And I think that the concern, or this view that it's only the visitors that aren't wearing masks, I'm just not seeing that. And I also see people, the visitors that come to our community come because they appreciate our community, they appreciate our values, they appreciate what we have here, and they value the same things we value. They're not coming here to harm us, or to do anything, or to behave negatively, or to make us uncomfortable. This past Saturday would have been street fair. It pained me to read jokes on social media about how great it was that people were able to walk downtown because they didn't have street fair. But what I see are the tens of thousands of dollars that was lost to our businesses and nonprofits in this community because we didn't have street fair. Of course, I'm not lamenting the fact that we didn't have street fair. Of course, we could not have street fair, but it would be nice for people to understand that street fair is an incredibly important event for our businesses, for our nonprofits in this community, because it brings in money from outside the community, which then lessens the financial burden on local people. The decision on mask wearing legislation is for council to make, but I ask council to recognize the sacrifices that the business owners are making to invest in Yellow Springs, the commitment they have made to this community, and to ask for equal respect for their views. Our businesses need our support right now. The easiest way to support them is to shop local. You can also support them through the Uplift Yellow Springs Fund at the Yellow Springs Community Foundation by going to upliftyellowsprings.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that perspective. Do we have other folks that want to comment? Not seeing any hands raised. Oh, okay. Who was that?
Sarah Sinclair.
Okay, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Sorry. I had a couple questions. I did send an email prior, just as a parent of a child with a disability with sensory processing disorder. So, and he's been through 7 years of occupational therapy. If this was, 2-3 years ago, there's no way he would have been able to have a mask on his face without vomiting or having a panic attack. He can make it about 20 minutes now. But, with that, how long this continues, and if they're trying to do an ordinance, I really think we need to look at how would this be addressed? And would he have to carry a cart around with him and then be pulled over by the police all the time, or having people coming up and asking him questions and making him, not feel safe going out into the community? And obviously the state of Ohio even has reservations. They're not able to put anything through. They have put forward House Bill 682 to amend, Ohio laws, but I'm not sure how this provision can go through under home rule if it's not legal for the state of Ohio.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other comments? Who's that? Oh, Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do this. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. This is my first Zoom. Yay.
All right.
I just wanted to say that I've taken the coronavirus tracing training, and I'm not a super expert, but I've done a lot of reading on it also. And I just wanted to add that in an outdoor setting, they had like 318 cases, and only one of those or two of those people were they looked at 318 transmissions of COVID person to person contact, and only one of those was done contracted in an outdoor setting. And those were two people that were talking over like a 5-minute period that were close to each other, like playing chess or something like that. So almost just a huge percentage of this transmission is indoors. And I think it's really important that we have masks required indoors if possible. Of course, if a person has an allergy, some sort of like the child that was mentioned earlier, and also Governor DeWine had a person call him personally and talk about that. I think the exceptions are, few and far between, and those are fine, but most of the people should be wearing masks. It is a respiratory illness. It's transmitted through air droplets and through the fomites that are in the air. And it's highly contagious, more contagious than the flu, of course. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I think I'm a big mask proponent, and I still forget to get my mask out when I get out of my car to go into Subway or wherever sometimes, and I just go right back to the car and get it. And I enjoy talking to my friends downtown, across from Tom's on Friday nights. And unless I'm eating some coleslaw or something from Tom's, I'm going to put my mask on, and to be kind, and also to, stop the transmission of this disease. It's a horrible disease, and it's taken so many lives. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that an ordinance make a lot of sense, but I think indoors, and when we get down to a colder weather, towards the fall and the winter, without a vaccine, I think we're going to have a need for a much greater.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And for the record, can you go ahead and say your first?
Thank you.
Okay, Dave, can you, for the record, say your name and affiliation with the village? All right. We know Dave's name, Laura. Okay. Do we have any other comments?
You've got one from Kate Hamilton.
Okay.
I can read it if you want.
Sure.
She says, I resent people not wearing masks, anyone not wearing masks. This is being treated like a small issue. This is a global pandemic and people are dying.
Okay. Do we have any other new comments? Okay. Is that Karen again? Karen. Okay. Karen, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just didn't put my hand down.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So Judy, Josue, Philip, any other comments that we should bring up before we move on?
Brian, the only comment I would make it as you decide how you want to move forward, only that Lisa's made her position clearly with regard to wanting some level of enforcement, which my feeling would be that would require an ordinance. So that may be something you'd want Chris to weigh in on, or to figure out amongst yourselves as to which direction that's likely to go.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. All right. So I think we've captured a lot of feedback for the last, this has been on our agenda, or we've discussed it for, I think this is our 5th meeting now. We had a lot of feedback on Friday, a lot of really good input from citizens with letters, great surveys and businesses input. So I guess there are a couple things that we need to think about from what I heard from council, and maybe that's adjusted a bit as we've been discussing, is generally leaning towards, or at least a majority of us leaning towards, some kind of resolution or formal statement of our expectations. And then I think there are some different thoughts about enforcement per Judy's comment. So I guess at this point, any council members that have some additional thoughts that they want to share, and then we'll kind of move towards potentially some decision. Yes, Marianne?
I am comfortable at a minimum, I guess, with council making a statement that we expect people to wear masks downtown, social distance, and wash their hands. So that's hard to get on a billboard or, you know, that electronic thing as you come in and out of town. I think that in order to do, whether it's an ordinance or whatever, we need to have a public information campaign that is effective. And whether that's, well, I mean, there are lots of ways to do that, but I think that the public information campaign needs to say, Yellow Springs expects people to wear masks, however the message is going to be in downtown Yellow Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if we have a longer explanation, there can be the caveat. We understand that there are some people for whom this is not then an option, and that's cool, you know.
Right.
But so
right.
That's
okay. Thanks, Marianne. Any other council members? Yeah, Lisa.
Right. So a couple of comments. I believe that the chamber, as well as many of the business owners, are well aware that I have been working tirelessly to help with financial support in my role with the Development Corporation to support the businesses. But my concern about safety and wellness overcomes that. And 70% of people wearing masks when they're not social distancing, that is not a meaningful statistic to me. If they're social distancing, okay, but 70% is not sufficient. We need to strive for 100%. And if we're not going to strive, then, you know, we are making a mistake. I am less concerned about, you know, again, I'm not into like hunt and punish, but I do think an important characteristic will be for us to identify what the downtown business district is, and particularly on the weekends, to have some sort of perimeter identified using some kind of, I don't know what, some kind of perimeter marked with very clear signage that says, you're coming into the business district of Yellow Springs and you are expected to wear a mask, physical distance, and here's some hand sanitizer as you come in. I really think we have to be very strong. And I'm not into asking our peace officers to go in and tell business owners what's going on in their shop. That's up to them, and people like me who only want to be wearing masks should just stay away from their business rather than shopping locally. But for me, having a perimeter, particularly on the weekend, just as we do at street fair, where you say you're in street fair now, right? You're in the village of Yellow Springs now. And these are the expectations. We have to get stronger. I'm not going to wait for a surge and then say, oh, we should have been stronger. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Kevin?
Yeah, and just echoing back to a point that Mary Ann made, and actually I suggested the same thing probably 6 weeks ago, but I was thinking it would just be a station where folks could just grab masks, and she's proposing sort of like ambassadors. But I think we should not negate that as one other prong to our approach. I mean, there's probably some well-meaning, there are some well-meaning, would love to be compliant folks who would come to Yellow Springs and, you know, when they thought it was sort of kind of okay, optional, do you want to do, didn't bring a mask, but now, you know, I get in town and it's a requirement or it's being more strongly encouraged. Gosh, if I had a mask I could grab, I would wear it. So I think we should consider our fiscal responsibility in terms of helping provide for some of those masks. And you know, when we start talking about enforcement, you know, it could be a tiered approach, but instead of my first encounter receiving a ticket, my first encounter should be, here, take a mask. I mean, your offense is you're not wearing a mask, take a mask. Now you have no excuse. Thank you.
And Laura?
I just think our staff is stretched far enough at this time with so much going on, and this is not a high priority. I'm not saying that people's health is not a priority. Please don't misunderstand me. But what is the problem we're trying to solve here? I'm grateful that we've been so healthy and so few cases here as things have turned out. I guess I would like to, it seems like it's going to carry on that way. And not sure what people think is going to change that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Laura. So Josue is going to share a resolution that I drafted that I think captures the general consensus that I've heard from council. And I guess I first of all want to look at the title just to kind of highlight how I'm thinking about this. So as soon as we get that on.
I'm sorry. Oh, he's sharing. You do have someone who's got their hand raised and has had for a bit. So.
And who is that?
It's Lori Sparrow Knapp.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's get to Lori in a second. Okay. But I want to capture sort of based on what we've talked about. Okay. So you can see that the title here emphasizes the triad that I mentioned. This, by the way, is an idea that Minerva Beery highlighted from the at the chamber board meeting. And I thought it made a lot of sense. We shouldn't just be calling out only the facial coverings. And then, Josue, can you go ahead and just scroll down towards the end? Because the first, there are a lot of whereases here that capture the state of emergency and the timeline. So, and we've actually seen these in a prior resolution. So rather than focus on those, I would suggest that we look at the therefores. So what is highlighted here is, you know, the focus on the central business district, which I think we can demarcate effectively. There's again, I'm suggesting, and I've heard at least from others, that we have an enforcement challenge. This is something we've been hearing from a lot of folks on the village team as well. So it's suggesting, at least for now, the self-compliance, and then there are some other aspects of that in that regard. But I didn't want to have this on hand in case we are ready to make a decision tonight rather than wait for our next meeting in July. Okay, so I'll pause there, and if Lori Sparrow has a comment, we can hear that.
I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little late to the meeting. Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
So a few minutes ago, someone said, what are we trying to do here? And I think that that's a really good thing to bring up. What we're trying to do is stop the coronavirus from spreading in our community. Clark County was called out by Mike DeWine today. Clark County, Montgomery County is a rising hotspot in Ohio. Right now, Clark County, Springfield, per capita has, their cases are at 394 right now. And that per population is one of the highest points in the state right now. I teach in the schools, and I know how important it is to see positive behavior and science acknowledged by communities. I know that I don't know what's going to happen in the fall when our kids go back to school, but I do know that masks may be part of that. Maybe. We haven't decided. We're just trying to figure things out. To have a village that values science, and every day, even the CDC is pulling back from now going, well, maybe you should wear face coverings. In New York this past weekend, when big gatherings were getting together, Cuomo's now saying, I'm going to shut it down again. And there was just a study published that just shows that looking at Wuhan, New York, and Italy, that face coverings may have mitigated great amounts of death. And this is all sourced. I can share this. I just want to go back to the science and what Lisa says. We have a lot of people come in from out of town who come here for a lot of reasons, to shop, to enjoy themselves. The first one who gets sick from coronavirus and blames Yellow Springs, all of that's going to blow up on us. I think that there is a way. I am so anxious to get back to doing Shakespeare for free. I am so anxious to get back to being able to go back to something that looks like this. And we at Yellow Springs Theater Company have canceled our summer season because of this, because we don't believe we could keep people safe with social distancing and masks the way we need to. I just want to urge the council to listen to Ms. Krieger, because I think instead of being doom and gloom, to say, hey, when you come in town, we want you to protect us. And we want to show our kids that we value science and we understand public health. I just feel very strongly about this. I don't come to these meetings and do these things, but I really don't want our old people to have to stay in their houses. I really want to be able to continue to come downtown. Anyway, I'm running long. I just want to encourage the council to really, really consider all the people that we love in the village. It's going to take the loss of one of them for this to turn around. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. And can you give your affiliation with the village, please?
Absolutely. I am the theater teacher at Yellow Springs High School, McKinney Middle School, and the artistic director of the Yellow Springs community. And I have lived in this area most of my life. The village is my true north. I spend about 95% of my dollars there, except for housing, and I'm working on that.
Yep, great.
Working on
it. Thanks again. Okay, so do we have any? Go ahead.
Karen Wintrow, I guess, would like to speak again. It's your call.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, I'll make it brief. I think we absolutely can improve on the messaging, and you and I have worked together on that. We've got a lot of Be Kind signs. I think we've got hundreds of them around the village now, so I don't want to totally abandon that, but we can certainly beef up that message. I do think it has to be I think we can have a broader press release, a broader statement, but the signage and the immediate messaging has to be short and sweet and visual and catch people's eyes. That's what we've been trying to do, and I think we can build on that and do a better job of it. And I have mixed feelings about giving away masks, because we have an awful lot of businesses who are selling masks. And what I'm hearing from them is that if people come into their shops, they're not wearing a mask, they buy one. So I don't want I prefer the village not be taking a revenue opportunity away from our businesses. I think maybe there's a some way to help to facilitate that so that it doesn't hurt the businesses. Thanks.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, and that's great. However they get out, I'm okay with it. And I know that, and I appreciate you saying that, Karen. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks again, Karen. I do want to highlight one thing that is a part of Karen's message that I don't want to be lost here, which is that to have a thriving downtown and to have everything that Yellow Springs has requires that thriving local business community. And we certainly benefit from that as villagers. Not having any visitors or a significant cut of that would also cut our quality of life. So I think it's important to remember that. All right, so I think we're at the point.
Brian, I completely agree, but we just need to have visitors who are wearing masks. I completely agree.
Okay, and Lisa, we're not disagreeing about that, right? I mean, I'm the one that's proposed that we move forward, or I'm one of the people that's agreeing that we should move forward. So, okay. Anything else before we talk about what we're going to do?
Yeah, I would just like to say in regard to what Karen was saying, that there could be significant signage downtown that included requiring mask wearing, and masks are available at and list every place in downtown where people can buy masks.
Right. Yeah, I should also mention, by the way, the Be Kind yard signs were started by citizens. And that was a vision that they thought would be impactful to support the overall campaign. So I think that underscores how important it is that everybody gets on board if we're going to make any impact. Okay, so there's a draft resolution that that we have posted. I know that it was shared with council. So I guess at this point, I mean, do we feel ready to move forward with making a decision tonight, or what do you suggest?
I have a question. Can we pass this resolution without the necessity of it then becoming a minor misdemeanor or something and involving the police?
In the existing format, or the draft suggests self-compliance, so we would not have the police involved.
Where is that?
In the therefores, it's section 2.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, got it.
Okay,
thanks.
But again, to me, part of this proposal is, again, we need to reassess and see, is everybody being committed, and are we all doing the things that we're promising to do to make this work? And then that could change which way.
I have one suggestion about this resolution. Given that there are some people who are not able to wear masks,
mm-hmm.
I think that I think there should be some phrase in there that everyone expects all individuals to comply if there is no medical reason or something. Someone can wordsmith that.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else?
Brian,
yes.
We've had this for such a short period of time, so I'm scrambling to try to understand the details. But one of the things, does it exempt children under a certain age? I mean, obviously we're not going to ID kids and get their age, but I mean, visibly children under a certain age.
Yeah, that's not specific in there, but I think that's a great recommendation to add along with what Mary Ann mentioned.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do apologize. None of us knew what direction this would go in, but I wanted to get a draft together so that we could make a decision.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah. And I did try to reflect what we've been hearing and come up with something that, I think is at least a good next step, maybe not ultimately where we land. Okay. Laura Kevin, any last thoughts?
Well, I think it's confusing to the public to say they're required and have no law enforcement activity behind that. I mean, either make it an ordinance and enforce it and all that entails, or don't. I think the messaging has been great. I think for whatever reason, it's working. And I know people don't trust that, but thankfully we've had very few cases.
Right. Thanks for that reminder, Kevin.
Yeah, in that, I feel at this juncture, I think we're mostly in agreement on making a statement, and that's where I think a resolution is appropriate. So I would support, this resolution with the aforementioned modifications.
Okay. Anyone?
I'm seeing something that would indicate that people are commenting and we're not seeing their comments. Is that, well, it was Kate Hamilton commented, I guess, but I don't know if there are other people that are.
Okay. So are there some new comments that we're seeing that we haven't heard already, or?
I don't know. I can't see the comments.
Yeah, I'm kind of asking Josue and Philip if they see anything, or Judy.
There's a whole lot of comments.
Right. I mean,
they're all on this topic, so I don't know if you want me to read them.
I'm just going to restate that people need to be really clear about identifying themselves and identifying that the comment is for council, because there's a whole lot of back and forth. It's not clear all the time to me whether people are commenting to one another or to council. That otherwise we're going to be reading a lot.
Yeah, I think at this point we've had significant amounts of discussion. I know that just like with reopening, there are hundreds of different perspectives on the nuance of what we do. But I'm not seeing anything that is a new comment, but I understand that not everybody totally disagrees with some aspect of what we're proposing.
Hey, Brian, this is Philip.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, so one of the things that I'd like to propose, and this is what we normally do if we have our council meetings and moving forward, and you can let me know if this is still okay. For the comments that go unaddressed, a lot of times those make for good bullet points for our virtual town hall. Because they're shared with people that are throughout the community and other constituents. So when I don't post all of the comments, it's because a lot of them are just kind of regurgitated and the same sentiment is said sort of over and over and over again.
Right.
So, so I'll probably make a bullet point at our virtual town hall just to be able to speak to those challenges that people are seeing or that are facing. And let me know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, Philip. And, kind of related to that, we do Facebook Live captures or, saves the chat. I think we're figuring out ways to capture what's on YouTube. And so, we will certainly see all of those comments. All right. So I think at this point, does anyone want to make a motion?
I move that we pass the resolution as amended.
Okay. And this is resolution 2023.
22, 20, or 2022.
I think the racism, anti-racism one was 23.
Oh, yes, 22, 23.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is 23.
Okay, and second. All right, and Judy, if you could call, and as amended, Judy, could you call the roll?
And I'm sorry, what was the amendment?
The two amendments were to add, if you can wear masks for medical reasons, as long as, there aren't any medical reasons. And the second one was not required for what age is it, Lisa?
I would say certainly under 3 is what I've seen in other places.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Ready?
Yes.
Curlis,
No.
Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. And I appreciate all the feedback we've been getting. This is not the end of this discussion. Now we need to commit. And I hope that we have as much energy with working on safety from the community as we see in the chat. So with that, we're going to move to the manager's report. Josue?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Right, I have a few updates. As our practice have been to provide an update on essential services. Actually, folks may want to see me, huh? So let me switch over my video here.
Yeah, they've seen enough of me.
All right. All right, so update on our operations. All the essential services continue to be delivered without any interruption. We continue our communication strategy to inform residents on the latest COVID-19 developments. We will add this new resolution to our communication strategy. As you may have noticed, and it was noted earlier today, that the public restrooms are open and with a modified schedule. So they're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. with cleaning taking place every 2 hours. All parking lots are open. The playgrounds and courts, including the basketball courts, are now open. I've in the report for this reporting period, I've included the update on the Vernay remediation project. As you know, as I reported previously, the timeline for the statement and basis has shifted to later in the year. Our next meeting with the US EPA is scheduled for June 24th. So we'll be in a position to provide an update at the first council meeting in July. Administrative updates. The HR assessment is underway. I've attached our risk resolution and strategic plan for improving our HR program and services to our employees. The utility roundup report is included. We have an ending balance of $8,355 in our utility roundup program. We assisted 4 clients in May, totaling $715 of assistance for utilities. We are reviewing our solid waste management contract. We're in discussion with solid waste companies to review services for our community. This has been a particular challenging situation because of the availability of recycling services in our region. Rumpke is the key player in recycling services, and other solid waste providers rely on Rumpke for recycling. And that's our current provider. So there'll be more to update at the next council meeting. Police department updates. We had a little over 1,200 community contact incidents with 2 critical incidents. The police department assisted 2 individuals that were overdosed. They've administered Narcan with positive reaction. Both individuals were transported and treated by medical personnel. We are excited to announce that our fire panel situation has been resolved. We have a new fire panel for the building, and the alarm is working. It is annoying, and it got all the people out of the building when we were testing it. So it is working. So good job, Johnny, on finding the loudest fire panel, and which also allows us to have meetings here in the immediate future. I have included in this report the iWork Citizen platform. We are launching an online platform that would assist in reporting incidents and call for services for our residents. So it's an online platform. There will be a web component and an app component where you can submit a service request. What is a service request? It could be anything from a pothole to a road obstruction or a utility service. So this would allow both us to have a better process of managing our workflow and allows our residents to submit their request for service at any time of the day or night, and you will have access to tracking that request. So in real time, you can see where in the queue it is and what's the follow-up. So for council, we've included a description of what the features of the system include, and that is tracking of locations of citizen requests, ensuring that the request integrates with other applications we have in our procedures. That is the GIS mapping of sewer lines, power lines, maintenance holds, whatever it may be. If it's something that we service with maintenance, it's going to be tracked in our GIS system, and we're able to link requests for services to those assets. That's a big deal for us because there are things that have been installed underground the village that we do not know anything about. On a regular basis, we're discovering a new maintenance hole, a new water line, and things that we don't know existed underneath our ground. And a lot of that has to do with the documentation. So we're now looking for ways to document all that so future administrations could see the history of any asset that we maintain. It would also allow us to do some improve code enforcement and permit management. The system is capable of attaching pictures and location coordinates and allows for two-way communication. Okay, and that's it for my report. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question, Josue. I appreciated the very lengthy risk resolution and strategy plan, but I'd like a little more explanation. There was a lot of stuff included in that with a lot of time, apparently, that HR Elements is or will be devoting. I'm not clear whether all of that is being done, and I don't know what the cost of it is.
Okay, good question, Marianne. The contract that we have for the HR services is not to exceed 10,000. We've allocated that and for this year for the remaining 6 months. We estimate being able to accomplish all that's in the risk solution and strategic plan within that budget. For details on how we plan to roll this out, I would refer to you to page 78, which is the recommended next steps. And that's broken out by the priority classification of those tasks, the recommended timeline that will accomplish those things, and the details associated with that particular task. Now, there's some elements that list a high number of hours, and that's a projection. There are things that as we get into it, we may find that they would take up less time. A good example would be the employee handbook.
Right.
And that has an allocation of 25 to 31 hours, and that's a projection. I think once we get into it, while our HR manual was produced in 2014, it's 92 pages long. Once we get into it, it'll be clear to our HR team that a lot of the policies are up to date. With a few exceptions, there'll be things that we'll need to double check to make sure that we are in compliance with both state statute and federal labor laws. So I don't anticipate that entire work is going to take 31 hours, but the team will review that to make sure that we are in compliance with what we need to have, but also look at what opportunities are in the HR manual for us to improve the management of our team, the management of our performance. You know, earlier today we were talking about anti-racism policies and other things that we can do to ensure that we are the employer that is being anti-racist. And a lot of that work starts with the review of the employee manual. Are we supportive of anti-racist policies? And if there is a breakdown in the behavioral of our team, do we have the right policies and the right actions to take to ensure that either doesn't happen again or we are improving on those situations? So I don't expect that the hours as listed there, that's gonna be necessarily right on the mark. There are things that I think gonna take less, but there are things that are gonna take longer. The risk solution and the strategic plan is broken down by different areas of work. There's an HR compliance, and that is a auditing process. They're going to look at our files. They're going to see to make sure that we have the right documentation that should be on those files, that we are meeting the COBRA compliance and all those other pieces. There's a performance management piece. We'll be looking at performance management plan. Currently, our performance management strategy is that council sets its goals and values, and then council and the team works to develop the goals for the year. We want to develop the performance management system that, okay, the council holds me accountable for a set of performance goals, and those performance goals trickle down to the team and ways of performance plans or work plans for individual teams and individuals. So that's part of the work that will go into that. Likewise, employee evaluations. The next piece is employee relations and management coaching. So we'll be engaging in an employee survey to gauge where our employees are with their satisfaction of their employer, and we'll gauge a few other things to identify what will be key steps to ensuring a good, effective relationship with their employees. The coaching support, the management team will have access to HR professionals. I've shared the profile of the individuals previously. The 2 HR advisors that we have each have over 15 years of HR experience, and they have all the HR certifications that there are to have. So these folks are talented and well-equipped with the tools to provide the management team here with coaching assistance to ensure that we are building a highly effective and performing team.
It seemed like, well, I started adding up the hours. I mean, I don't know, maybe they're going to spend about 200 hours or at least 150 hours, and $10,000 seemed like a low amount for all that time, but
right. And part of the number, the financial figures has to do with what do we have available in our budget. We made some changes within the organization, and that frees up some money. But right now, what's easily to point at is this 10,000 that we have. If we need additional work, and we need to add more money and the funds are there, we would add additional work. But the other thing about the timeline, Marianne, not everything has to be done right away. So when you look at those low priority items that include offboarding, the exit interviews, the recruitment services, and some of the management training, those are 181 days out. So that's in 6 months. And in 6 months, we'll be starting a new fiscal year, and we'll have more funds available for us to engage in this additional work. So not all of it is being done right now and within the 6 months. So we'll be spreading some of that work out. I hope that answers your question.
thank you. And you'll be reporting on this periodically, how it's going.
Correct, absolutely.
Great, thanks.
All right, any other questions for Josue? All right, thank you, Josue. And all right, I think we then want to talk about future agenda items, and then we will wrap up our meeting. So one thing I want to point out is that some of the items that we have been pushing forward are proposed for our next meeting on July 6th. Of course, we'll have to continue to assess what other things come up. A good example is we added a significant item to today's agenda. So are there any other future agenda items that we should get in the parking lot?
Brian, I would just like to talk about the one that is there with Gina Marie Cox.
Yes.
I'm gonna have a conversation with her so that we can determine where things stand, because when I first asked her to come, that was like, probably 4 months ago. Things were very different then. And I think we need to step back and look at this. So I will get back. I'll talk with her hopefully this week and then get back to see whether it makes sense for her to come in July.
All right, thanks, Marianne.
Or to change what she comes to talk about even.
Okay, yep. Any other items? Laura, did you have something?
Just a letter to the governor. I'd like to Opposed, please.
Yep. Anything else?
Yes.
Kevin.
Now, I apologize. I muted myself earlier and I was clearing my throat out a lot. So I'm sorry. I might have heard that. So this might be covered or addressed with the same conversation regarding parades and whatnot, but I think maybe we should put on a future agenda discussion about block parties and the degree to which we'd be supporting those. And again, I would expect, a decision about all those types of events to be made, and that'll, they'll all go one way or the other based on, whether we're allowed to have those types of gatherings.
Right. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we should track that down. I will tell you from my experience on the governor's outdoor recreation task force, there's a lot of stuff that has turned into guidance, and a lot of it's been left to kind of the basics around distancing and gathering. So, but yeah, we should follow up on that. Anything else? Okay. Judy, did you have anything else that you had noted?
Well, I've got this list, but I thought that we could go over it in agenda planning.
Okay.
Just to confirm, unless Johnny Burns is still on and wants to let us know if he's still up for the dog park plan update. Otherwise, I can follow up with him later.
Okay. I don't see Johnny.
Okay.
Oh, there. Hey, Johnny.
I have not talked to Richard, but I would think that we would have an update in July.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So motion to adjourn.
I move.
All right. Second from Laura. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, everyone. Have a great 4th of July. We'll see you on July 6th. And be safe. Wear your mask.
Goodbye.
Everyone, have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Brian,
Yes.
this is Chastely. Can I just quickly, from Pride,
Yeah.
did you guys talk about that?
We did a little bit, but we didn't have a lot of detail. Do you have my cell?
I do not.
Why don't you call me on that? It's 937-776-9566. 776-9566. And yeah, you can call me right now.
Okay, I'll give you a call.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think your phone number.